Hey guys, and welcome back to part 2 of Suza's interview. Now, if you haven't watched part 1, you know where to find it. In part 2, Suza talks to us about what it was like going to rehab at 19 years old and some of the biggest struggles that she's had to overcome, but also the biggest lessons that she's learned. She also lets us in on how life was like after rehab, navigating being sober, and coming to terms with her sexuality. So there's a lot coming up, so stay tuned. And if you haven't already, please like, subscribe, and comment. And let's dive right in. You go to rehab. Tell us what's that like.
Suza goes to rehab.
Suza goes to rehab.
So, January 12th, 2009, I end up in rehab here in BC.
Wow.
So my dad flew out with me. What I did is I did the 42-day program at the primary care center, which is so there's like group therapy, you have individual therapy, AA meetings, and you're just really thrown into it, and it's all consuming. So
it's intense.
Yeah, it's very intense, and like you have all your meals there, and there's several other people there, you all have your rooms, and it was super intense. And it was also one of those things where I didn't actually think that I would stay sober afterwards.
Wow.
Like, although it was my decision to go to rehab, I thought that I would stop doing the harder drugs, but would continue blazing, continue drinking. So I did the 42 days, and I started really like coming into my own, and I started really growing. And that's when I really, for the first time in my life, had people like draw out all of these emotions from me. And I was able to talk about the things that frustrated me, and the things I loved, and the things I didn't love, and what made me sad, and the things that kind of made me who I was.
Yeah.
It was like that freedom that I craved.
Yeah.
And it was that commitment that I craved.
In a different sense.
In a very different sense.
Wow.
In a very different sense. And I was finally able to start being who I was. And I also felt like I had my community.
I love
right?
that.
So it was just like, it was so interesting that it took me all the things that I went through and all the things that I did in order to end up in rehab of all places before I found that sense of community and really belonging. And I think that was huge for me.
Yeah.
And I stayed there for a long time. After I finished the initial program, I went on to the second stage housing, like extended program, if you will. And I stayed there for another 4 or 5 months because I needed it.
So was there a particular person in rehab or like a situation that really inspired you?
Yeah, I think there were several people that definitely helped me get through. One in particular was the GM, who ended up becoming a close friend of mine, but she really, like, she saw all the crazy sides of me, like the sides that just like needed that adrenaline rush and needed that chaos.
Mm-hmm.
But she was able to we were able to hone in on that, but in a way that still like allowed me to be sober and allowed me to be who I was, like kind of without going off road.
Wow.
And I think that was huge for me because I really needed that. I needed that person that I could look up to, and she was that person.
And that rock.
She was that rock, and she was a total babe and like so hot. And
if you're watching.
and she was sober, and she was fit, and she was confident, and she still had all these emotions, and she was raw, and she was real. She was authentic. And I wanted to be authentic.
You wanted to aspire to be like her,
Yeah.
When you were in rehab, what were some of the major mindsets that you had to overcome, or things that you had to do in terms of like really sticking in it and getting better?
So I think for me, the hardest part was my age.
Yes.
So when I went into rehab, I was 19.
Yeah.
And never in a million years could I have imagined that at 19, when I had just become legal, I would be in rehab.
Yeah.
And so that for me, the biggest thing for me was getting over my age. And like, I just thought that I would never be able to have fun again. When you first sober up and you start being your authentic true self, you start drawing those kinds of people into your life. And I found such an amazing community and such an amazing group of friends that really held me and like helped raise me almost. Like one of my best friends always says that like it took a village to raise me, and it did. Like it absolutely did.
Wow.
And my biggest fear was not having fun in sobriety, and how would I ever have fun again? And I found that. I was able to find that because I had finally connected with my true inner self, and the people around me were all a reflection of that. And I've just had the best times. And we had the best times, and we went boating and kiteboarding and wakeboarding and concerts, and I did all these amazing things, and I was able to have the best time of my life as a result. So I just think that if you're looking to sober up, or if you're young and you're sobering up, just know that like the best version of you is yet to come.
Yeah.
And you will become the best version of yourself.
And there's a community out there waiting
and there's a community out there waiting for you, and they'll always reach out and give you a hand if you need a hand, and you can still have an amazing time.
So you found your community,
Yeah.
and you're out of rehab, and what is that like for you then? And did you have any moments where you really struggled? Or, yeah.
I mean, I think, yeah, like it was super hard. I'm not gonna lie. Like I didn't just leave rehab and become this amazing, fun, sober person that just had all their shit together. Like I had a lot of rough moments, and I had a lot of times where, again, as I mentioned earlier, I really craved the adrenaline rush and the chaos.
Yeah.
So when my life calmed down and I was sober and clear-headed, it was hard because it almost just felt boring.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really where like the community really came in and showed me that I could still have fun, and that I could still have a great time and be loud and outgoing and confident and positive, and that I hadn't lost that part of myself. So that for me was crucial.
Yeah.
And that's when I also like really was able to tap into my sexuality. Like the beginning of my sobriety for sure was a bit of a phase. I was sleeping with a lot of people, and I was just like, I was doing it to hype myself up. I was doing it because I still had that need to be desired. And so it didn't matter if it was a one night stand or if it was on a whim. It just like, it got me excited. And then I guess that's when I was able to tap into like, hey, like I really like women.
Did all the drugs and alcohol and abuse to your body and the ones around you, did that link anyway to sexuality or cover up for what you were hiding?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so for sure, because when I was under the influence, like none of that stuff mattered, right? Like I'd kiss and hook up with girls when I was drinking and doing stuff like that, but you always have an excuse to fall back on.
Yeah, I was.
When it's that kind of situation.
Drunk,
exactly. I was drunk, I was high, I was this, blah, blah, blah. Whereas now suddenly I'm sober, so I don't have that excuse to fall back on.
Yeah.
And it just started coming out. And yeah, I was definitely ashamed of it. Like I was definitely trying to keep it at bay. And like for the longest time, all of my closest friends around me were always like, oh my God, you are so gay. And I was just like, I am not. And like, here I am wearing my board shorts and and like my big tanks, and I've got my hat on backwards, and I am just the epitome of gay. And I'm just like, no, absolutely not. Like, absolutely not.
Okay,
not me.
When I first met you, I thought, oh my God, there's another queer in the company. And then everybody was like, no, Suza's straight. She's dating guy. I was like, okay, sure. And here we are now. But I'm here for it. But it was just so funny because I thought it, but then everybody corrected me, and I was just like, okay, you wait.
Yeah, totally. It was one of those things where like I'd been with a lot of men, and I had hooked up with women too. And it was just like, like, is it men? Is it women? Like, I guess it's that whole, like, labeling thing where it's just like... The pressure of labeling really got to me, and it was just like, well, I don't want to be gay, but then I don't know if bisexual is something I like either.
I think the pressure of labeling is crazy because we feel like we need to fit into a certain category just to abide to, like, people's standards so people can understand where it's just like, why can't you allow me to just have the fluidity to just explore and live my best life and connect with people, and whoever I connect with, that is my truth.
Exactly.
You know, like, that's how it should be.
Exactly. And
I feel you, sister.
Again, as I was, like, growing in sobriety and, like, I was going to therapy and I was doing all these things to better myself and grow as a person, that side of me was able to come out more. I was a lot more confident and I started dating women.
How did you tell your parents? Because they were...
Yeah.
Must have been difficult.
Yeah, so coming out to my dad was super easy, and I knew it would be. I was dropping him off at the airport and then quickly blurted it out, and then he got on the plane and I ran off. But basically my dad was just like, yeah, I mean, fully assumed it, like, as long as you're happy, I'm happy.
Love that.
So he took it like a champ, and it was
really great. You must be so flustered on that flight, though.
100%. And then, later. And then, I think he, like, called me the next day and was just like, it's kind of weird how you did it. Like, it would have been nice to talk about it. Like, he appreciated it. Yeah, exactly. Have some dinner, like, chat it out instead of, like, quickly blurting it out and then peace.
That's so good. He was so accepting.
Yeah, so my dad was super accepting. My mom was the best one, though, because my mom I was so scared. And at the time, I had been dating a girl for several months. I told my mom last, and I actually waited a super long time to tell my mom. I didn't tell my mom until, like, a couple of years ago.
Wow.
Yeah, because I was so scared to tell my mom. And
your dad didn't tell your mom in between this time?
Honestly, I'm sure he did.
Oh.
I'm sure he did, and my mom was just waiting on it, but she waited years. But I just couldn't. For whatever reason, I was so scared of telling my mom. She was
the stricter parent.
Yeah, she was the stricter one for sure. My dad was a lot more easygoing and rational and was, like, kind of the rock. And my mom was more like... So my mom was in Vancouver. She was visiting. My best friend, Tash, came for tacos with us. And I purposely did it in front of her because I wanted a bit of a buffer. And then I very casually was like, so, like... I'm dating a girl. And my mom was like, what?
What?
And my best friend was like, ooh. And
gripping the table.
And yeah, she's gripping the table because she knows Joanna's about to go off on one. And then I just, like, went off on a tangent and I just kind of started blurting it out. And I was like, this is who it is, this is what she does for work, and blah, 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 and I'm trying to give my mom as much information about my girlfriend as I can, so she really can't get a word in edgewise. And my mom was just kind of listening and just kind of brushing it off, like, acting as though, like, she's like, okay, she's not asking many questions, she doesn't really care, and she just doesn't want to hear it. She'd much rather talk about an ex-boyfriend of mine.
Wow,
and so, for the next few times that we talk about it, like, she's just very... She would literally ask me how my ex-boyfriends are doing. And it almost got comical at this point. Like, it almost trumped the hurt that I felt because she was going so overboard. Like, it was just like, how is so-and-so doing? And have you hung out with so-and-so? And it's like, listen to my girlfriend. We just had a barbecue. So yeah, that was tough, but again, it was almost so exaggerated on my mom's part that you just had to laugh and it just became comical. And then...
Your mom is funny.
Yeah, she can be something.
Is she, like, how is she dealing with it now? Is she more accepting?
Now she's amazing. Now my entire family is actually amazing, and I think it's because with my other female partners, I was so scared to tell them that I just, like... I wasn't confident in the way I was telling them. I'm confident in so many areas of my life, but this, I just, like, I had some sort of barrier, some sort of block, and I just, like, didn't feel like I could freely talk about it.
Yeah.
And now it's like, fast forward a few years, and I'm in this amazing relationship with a woman, Her name's Amanda.
Shout out.
Shout out! And it's like, it's everything I could have hoped for and more in a partner. And we are just so solid, and my family loves her. And my mom and my family seeing my happiness and just seeing me thriving in it, like, you can't take that away from anyone, and you can't do anything but like love it and embrace it. And they've fully done that. They're constantly asking about her.
I love that. I think like it all comes back to like parents take their time. Like majority of parents take their time to understand or feel comfortable with it. And your mom was the best example of just like, she didn't at first, but the power of love and seeing your kid so happy and so authentic and so vulnerable, and everything that you've gone through to be like to where you are now, and one of the probably the best version of yourself. Probably like really helped your mom, and like look at her now. She can't stop talking about it, and she's just probably so happy for you.
So happy.
You know. Power of love, honey.
Power of love. And it's just so nice because I think it's also my confidence in this relationship that I think really brought my mom on board, because with my other female partners, like,
you weren't sure.
I wasn't sure. I was exploring, but even when I wasn't exploring, like, there were a lot of issues that we were having. And so, like, parents can feel that. Your family can
100%,
feel that.
100%.
But now when I'm so in it and so, like, both feet in, like, diving in the deep end and so in love and so happy and radiating joy and positivity, like...
Can't beat that.
Can't beat that.
I love that. Okay, let's dive into some questions.
Yes, sir.
So, what's some advice you would give someone, say if you go to a dark place, what is something that you do to get you out of it or help you get through, or something that just helps your mindset or mentality?
I think for me, the biggest thing, especially in the last few years that I've turned to, is just fitness.
Love that.
Fitness, getting out of my head, and just like taking time for myself, right? So like, as much as I'm so happy-go-lucky and love getting out there and hanging out with people, I think when I'm working out and I can just get out of my head and out of those thoughts and just like completely disconnect and focus on something else, I think that for me is the best medicine for anything that I'm going through. And especially when I'm in a darker place, is that's what I need to do. And also having a wicked support system. Support system has been crucial for me. Therapy has been crucial for me. And even when life's going well, like the thing is, therapy used to be such a thing where it was just like such a faux pas or something that you really didn't talk about.
Therapy is powerful,
Therapy is so powerful, especially with like mental illness, when you're dealing with like depression or anxiety or any of these things that most of us all deal with on a regular basis. It's like, never underestimate the power of therapy and how that can change your life to just get in somewhere and lay it all out on the table and be like, this is what I'm going through, and I just need to hear that I'm not alone and that brighter days are ahead.
100%. What is some advice that you would give to someone that is struggling with their sexuality?
I think the biggest thing for me, and especially looking back on my journey, would just be fear. Fear is the thing that always blocked me. And fear, whether it was fear of being judged or fear of not being accepted, and then I look at how it all went down and how coming out to my friends and to my family, how that all affected me. And like, my life changed, like did a 180 in those moments. So I would just say to not let fear take over. To not let fear take over, and just to be who you are and who you're meant to be, and not worry about what others are going to think, because the community of people out there who will love you and accept you will love you and accept you no matter how you show yourself to the world. And no matter whether you're straight, bi, it doesn't matter, or gay, they will love you no matter what, and they will have your back no matter what. And I think if I knew that going into it, I would have, there's that acronym for fear that's like face everything and rise. And fear stopped me from doing so many things in my life. And that was, of course, the biggest one. And there's always going to be people out there like the haters. There's always going to be people that talk smack or that like disagree with a decision or a life choice, or like don't love you for who you are. And that's okay. Like, you don't need everyone in this world to love you. That is okay. But as long as you're being true to yourself and you're staying kind and honest and positive, like, you will get through it.
What do you think are the next steps for inclusion of the LGBTQ plus community in society?
I think that's such a great question. It's so loaded. I think that, like, even what you're doing right now, even by creating this queer YouTube channel, I think that things like that and people being more open about their sexuality and also about their entire struggle, right?
Yeah.
Like, the fact that it's not easy coming out, the fact that it's not an easy process and it's such a journey.
The fact that we have to come out.
The fact that we have to come out. There's so many people out there that are just, again, as I mentioned before, so scared.
Yeah.
And I think that the more people are posting about it, the more that it's all over all these social media platforms like Instagram and Facebook and YouTube in a positive way, takes away from the negativity that's associated with it, or the stigma or the stereotype. Like, especially in a place like Vancouver where there is a very large LGBTQ family and community, and there's so much inclusion, but like, that didn't stop me from having that fear when I first came here. And it doesn't stop people from having the fear, but at least like the knowledge of its presence and that there is such a big community, like, provides that hope. The more that the LGBTQ plus is talked about, especially in a positive manner where it brings attention to it and kind of hones in on that, the more people are going to feel free and able to talk about those issues.
Okay. I mean, I completely agree with you, but no, thank you so much for acknowledging me and acknowledging the channel. And I just want to say thank you for coming on here and being so raw and open and sharing your story, because your story is going to impact so many people and give kids that are struggling that sense that whatever they're going through, they are able to get through it. And you're a huge inspiration. I truly think you're a huge inspiration. So I'm so grateful that you came on here.
I'm so grateful that you asked me to come on here. So grateful.
I love you.
I love you, honey.
And that's a wrap! That's a wrap! Thank you guys for following us along on Suza's journey. And thank you, Suza, for just coming on here, being yourself, and being so open with us. I'm so grateful to you. Catch us next week as we launch a new interview with Clay Clemens. I feel like I've said that already in the end of Mackie's video, but here we are now. So we're launching it next week. Anyways, I'll see you guys then. Ciao for now.